he spoke to Penny, and he was talking about the most distressing things that he's seen on this campaign. And a bit later on in the episode, Bomber gave an example of poverty in Auckland as well. And I'm going to play them both. And then there's a third clip I want to play, which is Simon Wilson on the hypocrisy of New Zealand's first immigration narrative. But let's just show these two first of all. It's pretty heartbreaking. The most distressing thing seen whilst from Penny Hanari whilst he's been on the trying to get elected.
On their hands.
What has been the most distressing thing you've seen out in the community?
I knocked on one whānau door in Mangere where there were 18 people in a 3-bedroom home. And some of them were working, some of them were on the benefit, some of them were really young, some of them were old, and it was just, we see a lot when you're in politics, but 18 people in a 3-bedroom home. Wow. And you know what was really awesome, though, Bomber, is they were awesome, and they came out to have a chat with me. We got talking about why it's important to vote and the challenges that they have. And you know what? Despite their circumstance, they're hopeful. So we've got a job to do to make sure that, we represent those people, that we can get real outcomes for those people.
I also think very closely that if you have a look at Penny there, he does look quite a bit like Dr. Dre in my position. I think he's got a bit of a Dr. Dre vibe going on there. So there's another one. Chewie, I got to not queue it up. I've got to get to it though. But that's the first. That's the first one. And then Bomber tells a story about poverty in Auckland, and it actually starts with Simon Wilson talking about being at a debate for the mayoralty, and only one person even used the word homelessness, and then that goes into a conversation around poverty. Have a listen to from last night.
And in Mount Eden, Helen White, the local Labour MP, to her credit, was the only speaker on the night who used the word homelessness.
Yes.
She was the person who said this is part of this larger issue. Yeah. She did not get a good reception for that, even though this was a room full of Liberal people. Yeah. When it came to their own houses, they didn't want to hear that, didn't want to hear that connection.
Follow-up question. Just want to have a quick chat about poverty and inequality with you. Heard a story last week. Solo mother in a South Auckland home. She had in her cupboards cereal boxes that were filled with rocks, so that when social welfare people turned up and they looked in her cupboard and they checked to see if she had food, they wouldn't take her kids. Now, that to me is such a horrific reality of where we are in 2025 in our city. Yeah. And I can't hear, and I don't hear any solutions other than multimillionaires being able to buy expensive mansions. That ain't going to help that woman, right? She's having to put rocks in the cereal boxes so she doesn't lose her kids. Thoughts?
I have to say the thing about the multimillionaires buying mansions upsets me, not because of itself, but because I think fundamentally it's a red herring. We should be talking about how are we going to build more affordable homes, how are we going to house the people who need it, how are we going to look after the people at the bottom. And that is the housing issue that the city needs to confront. It's really acute in Auckland.
So there's a couple of things to do with poverty and how people are living in Auckland in particular, but I'm sure we can spread that to other parts of the country. I've got another clip to play about Shane Jones's hypocrisy, which is a story told again by the lovely Simon Wilson. But Chewie, you want to respond to either of those first?
I think, God, it's like this the story of the cereal boxes, like that fear of the government coming to scoop up your children because you're poor. It's not a new story. It's an old one. It's something that we would have heard a lot in the 90s.
Yeah.
Under a different national government. And I think Auckland especially is really going to be a focal point of inequality because of how the economy is doing. Like we quite often talk about how Auckland is the engine room of our country just because of the amount of commerce that goes through it. And look, I was at a thing at work where we talk about safety of staff members and that sort of thing, and it's a conversation of what we see and what we see are the pressures of people. Does it drive aggression and that sort of thing? The person that was doing this workshop for us is from Auckland, and she was like, "Well, how do you guys feel?" And we're like, "Oh, we think things are sort of coming down. They were real bad after COVID." And she's like, "Wow, it's so different up in Auckland at the moment."
Wow.
You know, someone gets a bill bigger than what they were expecting. They come in aggressive. They're emotional, reactionary because they don't feel like they can cope with it. And she says that seems to be a vibe throughout the city. So, yeah, I think, you know, National have caused a lot of pain, and there will be people that are looking for hope, that hope things will get better, because at the moment things are very, very bad.
And I guess everything's probably heightened in Auckland, and it's not the same for everyone. Other places in the country, there is higher rents than the odd house in Auckland, but in general, it's so much more expensive to live that your 2-bedroom, $750 a week, you know, flat, that, and then I don't know. I get unfortunately there's so many of these freaking stories now. I get lost, whether it was on this show or whether it was someone else talking about someone had to pick between paying their rent and feeding their kids, and they said, "We hope the landlord's going to be okay because, of course, they're going to feed their kids first." And I think obviously a part of that is going to be cost of rent. I mean, it's not cheap necessarily anywhere. But, you know, what you get in Dunedin for $600 a week is going to be $1,000+ a week in Auckland, easily.
Yeah.
You know? So it's I'm not saying it's easier. You know, there are many people who are vulnerable and especially financially vulnerable all around the country. But when you add that extra layer of then the Auckland premium for everything, it just must make it so much worse. And I'm pretty sure on the show last night they said that unemployment might be like 8.5% in Auckland, and like 11% for Māori. I could be wrong, but it was higher than the national average that we're looking at the moment. So more expensive, fewer jobs, more debt. You know, you can see why people might come into a store with a bill they weren't expecting and be like, their response is kind of like, "What do you expect me to do?" Even though it may outwardly come out as anger and shouting. But, you know, how am I going to pay this, so to speak?
Yeah.
Let's get into this last clip, because this last clip is Simon Wilson at his best, and he is talking about going to see Shane Jones speak, I think in Warkworth, which is 45 minutes north of Auckland, maybe a bit less with the new motorways, and either 45 minutes north of Auckland or in rush hour 6.5 hours. But it's just beautiful. It's just beautiful. And look, you know, what we constantly say here on the show, I'm sorry if you get bored with this, but we will call out this government. We will hold them accountable to what they insisted the last government would be held accountable to, or to the standards they set for themselves. For example, they promised a full rebuild of Dunedin Hospital. That was their promise. So we're holding them accountable to that, right? And he brings up how Shane Jones sends a message to these elderly white people, let's just be honest, about the healthcare system and how migrants will be impacting their healthcare system. But he leaves out a little bit about who was in government when all these migrants were moving to New Zealand. You may pick up on the hypocrisy as Simon retells the story.
I was up in Warkworth on Sunday listening to Shane Jones.
Were you allowed?
Yeah, I was the only journalist there, and they welcomed me in. Shane Jones spoke to a packed hall,
they love him.
hall
They
of
love
300 people, and this is the kind of crowd that turns out to political meetings, and Karen will know who they are.
Yes.
They are older, they are wealthier, and they are white.
Yep.
And I'm not saying that critically. These people actually engage in democracy, and that's good for them.
Sure.
But that's who they were. And Shane looked at them and he said, Jacinda Ardern allowed 250,000 people to come into this country, and by the end of next year they are going to have residency and they are going to be eligible for hip operations. He knew his audience. They're coming for your hips.
Wow, they're coming for your
And,
hips.
and let me tell you,
That's incredible.
his 250,000 number is right,
Yes.
but it refers to the whole 6 years of the Jacinda Ardern,
Yes.
Chris Hopkins
Yep.
governments, plural.
Yep.
Most of those people came in the first term when, of course, New Zealand First and Shane Jones himself were in cabinet.
Right.
It wasn't Jacinda Ardern sitting in a little room by herself signing off visa applications.
Everybody
it
was
was
into
the
it.
government.
Yeah.
It was a coalition government who
Yeah.
did that.
Yeah.
So there you go. So Shane Jones and Winston Peters are directly responsible from supporting the legislation that allowed most of those 250,000 people in. And today, Shane Jones stands up and goes, look what Jacinda did. It's exactly the same with COVID. I can't wait. I just can't wait. I hope if there is a podcast God in the sky, I hope he blesseth us next year with some interviews with some of the top political figures from the other side. I want to go through all of those COVID decisions and go, did you vote for this one, Mr. Luxon? Oh, you did. Did you vote for this one, Mr. Luxon? Oh, you did. Did you vote for this one? Oh, you did. Okay. Because they've done very well at going, look what they did. And they were all involved. And it's exactly what Simon was saying of Shane Jones with the story about migrants coming to New Zealand. Migrants came to New Zealand thanks to, in part, Shane Jones and Winston Peters. And now Shane Jones is going, can we all just agree we're blaming Jacinda for the migrants? You know, it's just revolting.
Before I make comment on that, I just want to highlight an absolutely epic comment.
Sure. We need to pay these
The
people.
great
That, looks like, that sounds like
replacement.
that sounds like a T-shirt, doesn't it?
Look, it's an anecdote like that. I mean, we know Shane Jones is bad, right? We know Shane Jones is a performative buffoon who is playing a character because he wants to play the great game of politics. And I fully believe that the aim that Shane Jones has is not to do better for any segment of New Zealand. That would just, if he does good for somebody, that is just a side benefit of Shane Jones staying in politics. He obviously sees it as a great game. He obviously thinks he's very good at it. He'll say whatever he needs to say to whoever he needs to say it to. He needs someone to barrack for, and he needs someone to attack. And as long as he's got that, a taxpayer credit card, a table full of food, and an accountant that's not looking too close into those credit card charges, then Shane Jones is a happy man.
I
The
would
amount of
disagree with.
nonsense that he spews, like his latest about we should have nuclear reactors, everybody knows that that's bullshit. But he's gonna spit it out.
I'll disagree with you on one part. He is
No.
looking for. He is looking for. He is looking to help one person.
Shane Jones.
Correct. I mean, like when you see him standing up with the drill baby drill and just completely doing the opposite of things he's said and done for the past 20 or 30 years, what other honest held belief, legally speaking, can you come to other than he's looking for a paycheck or to feather his own nest at some stage? I mean, what unless he's done a Fetterman and he's had a head knock and it's all changed dramatically, you know? So I think he's looking, my honest held belief is he's looking to, for himself to do better, if no one else, Chewie.